When playing a survival game, your home base is always one of the most important parts. You customize it to make it your own, and you deck it out with resources that you'll need during the game. In my game, you play as a robot defending his home, so how you build your base will be even more important. As of now, there isn't much to do with your house. You can make some crop plots and a scarecrow, but that's about it. So it's time to change that. In my last video, I was trying to figure out the best way to show the scarecrow's range. If you haven't seen that video, these scarecrows aren't just normal scarecrows. Whenever an enemy gets close, a gun pops out of their head and they really start scaring. When you go to place them, it's nice seeing how big the range is. I decided that the one you're replacing will always show its range, but if you wanted to see the other ranges, you can just hit Alt and toggle them on. This really helps with not overlapping them where you don't want them to be, but it also showed me that their current range is way too big, so I had to shrink it a little bit. Okay, now for some new stuff. I figured one of the most important things you could build would be a fence to keep the enemies out. So I put together a simple fence model and set up the code to place them down, which worked first try as always. But I wanted to make them snap together. You might recall I had done this with the planter, but I have to come clean. It was a terrible solution. I had set up 4 points around the planter that if you look directly at them, it would snap the object in place just fine. But if the object was only overlapping with it, it would still take away the walls without snapping them together. So you get stuff like this, which is just bad. So I decided to make a better one, and this turned out to be way harder than I thought it would be. I spent about 5 minutes looking online for a solution, but gave up pretty quick and started trying to do my own thing. I had to do some hard calculations for this, but I'm pretty proud of the solution. So to simplify it, I made a few empty game objects inside the fence to act as locking points. Whenever you're placing a fence and it overlaps with another fence, it takes the locking points from both objects and finds which two are the closest together. It then finds the distance between those 2 points and moves the whole object that distance. There were still a few problems with this, like sometimes the whole object overlaps, but for the most part, I'd say it's a success. I had to fix a problem where you couldn't unsnap once you snapped, but all that took was to check to see if you were far enough away and then it would unsnap for you. And with that you can protect your crops, but something was still missing: a gate. Adding this wasn't too bad, because I could just copy what I did for the fence, but I have to come clean again. Hey guys, I wanted to do this part face to face. I have made a severe lapse in judgment. Many of you believe I'm good at coding, but that was a lie. It's just a persona I put on for my channel. In reality, my code is pretty terrible. I didn't show you guys my placement code before because I knew it was atrocious, and I'd have to change it later anyways. Well, it caught up to me, and I want to make it better, so I'll show you. Right now, I had code that worked, but for every game object I had to add new variables, new if statements, and add every new variable to all the old statements. This was quickly snowballing into too much garbage. Cleaning this up was a necessity. I knew the code was basically all the same, so I could just make an array of objects and loop through them. This cut the code down by about 100 lines, and that's with only 5 items. It was going to keep getting worse and worse, but now all I have to do to add a new item is put it into the array. I did have to split it up between items that snap together and items that don't, but that was only a few extra lines. And since this is all set up now, the planter also snaps together just like the fence. But since it's all the same code, it removes the hoe from your inventory. It might be time to add a new planter item. But that's a future problem. Instead, I wanted to work on the most important part of my game, the home you're protecting. Right now, the house is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. So I think it's time for an upgrade. Bus driver, move that bus! It went through a few iterations, and I'm sure it'll go through many more, but for now, I think this looks pretty good. Now the problem is, it normally spawns far away from you. With the whole point of the game being protecting your house, this wasn't going to work. So I made it so you spawn wherever the house is. But your house isn't just a thing to defend. I gave it a range, just like the scarecrow. But instead of shooting, it will restore your energy. This will help a lot in the early game, when your energy is low and batteries are hard to come by. It also has the added benefit of keeping you close to your base. But you're not the only thing it can help. I made it so whenever your defenses take damage, they get healed by your house, but only if there's no enemies nearby. Canonically, it's because the boy in the house can go repair them, but not when he's under attack. And I made sure this affected everything. I don't want you to have to spend most of your time just rebuilding the same things over and over again, so I thought it would be faster and just more fun to do it this way. Now, I hope you're not expecting this to be a free service. The boy can't work for nothing. If you recall, I had already set up a food supply a few episodes ago. It was a simple inventory that basically just held all your food. I reworked this a bit, so now it's more like a deposit. You can put your food in and then hit a button and the food is added to your food supply. I made this link to the defense's healing, so every 10 HP costs 1 food. This will give you a real reason to harvest food since robots don't need it. Sticking with home improvement, I needed to create a way to justify the house giving you energy, so I added a windmill. And I made it so scarecrows need to be placed within the range to have power. This will keep your base contained, and you'll be able to upgrade this range as you progress to spread it out even further. I have some ideas for portable windmills or generators, so you can bring defenses with you when you go exploring, but that's a later game feature. One of the problems I ran into with spawning with the house every time was that you weren't always near water. To fix this, I added a well you can build, and then you can just use that to fill up your water. Maybe you'll need it for some in the future. Wink wink. And to wrap everything up, I added the most requested feature of being able to pick up things you place. I decided the best way to implement this was by adding a wrench. This way you're only able to remove items if you're currently holding a wrench. I hope this makes it so you never do it on accident, but worst case scenario, you just have to place an item down again. And that wraps up this video. Let me know what you guys want to see added next. I think the next video is going to be all about adding more enemies and defenses. So I'll get working on that now, and I'll see you guys next time.